Welcome everybody to the latest episode of Social Europe podcast. Today we are very proud to bring to you President Emeritus of the European Council, Herman Van Rompuy, discussing the issue whether we need a new pact for Europe going forward. We would like to thank the King Baudouin Foundation, the Bertelsmann Foundation and the European Policy Center for organizing all the events around the New Pact for Europe project and for allowing us to bring this podcast to you. We hope you enjoy listening to this.
Ladies and gentlemen, beste Luc Taillard de Borms, dear Yannis Emanuelidis, it's a pleasure again to speak here at this important event, bringing so many engaged people together from across Europe. I'm sure you will be able today to come closer to a shared vision on what our main challenges are and where Europe should go in a spirit of dialogue. I've read, and more than that, the new Pact for Europe with great interest. The analysis is sound throughout, and I would certainly subscribe to almost all of its proposals. In particular, I think it was the right choice to frame the whole exercise around the need for public support for the European Union and the work it is doing. That's indeed essential, vital even. Without public support, Europe cannot go forward. This is something I know all leaders in Brussels and our member states realize acutely. At the national level, there is as much disenchantment and malaise as at the European level. Of course, during the first phase of the economic and monetary crisis, in the years 2009-2013, we often had to focus on immediate rescue action. We were saving the euro, no more, no less. We did so in order to save jobs and to bring back growth, for people to be able to maintain their income, their way of life, but these underlying objectives were not always immediately visible. And that's why people sometimes got the wrong impression that the currency, or the banks for the matter, was a goal in itself. It never was. It always was means to an end. And in this sense, the purpose was social. In that period, the European Union has gone through an unprecedented test, and we are only slowly coming out of it now. As I have often said in that period, I did not and do not agree with people who hastily concluded that the crisis has killed solidarity between European countries and peoples. Not at all. The crisis has revealed what it takes to be in a union, in terms of responsibility and in terms of solidarity. It was and is the first real test of solidarity in the history of the Union. The fact that the Eurozone today is stronger than 5 years ago, I will say a word about Greece later on, that we are stronger than 5 years ago is thanks to a gigantic collective effort involving all Euro countries, all EU institutions, all citizens, to muster the political will, the parliamentary majorities, and the means and money to help each other and come out of the crisis together. The hundreds of billions of euro of financial support testify in themselves to this de facto solidarity. In doing so, we show the world a joint political determination that many had underestimated. And today, being in a position of an engaged observer, myself un spectateur engagé, as Raymond Aron once said, I still see this determination at work. We have weathered a storm in these years, 2010-2013. We must keep this in mind when tackling the new challenges ahead in the Eurozone, in the Union, in the Mediterranean, and elsewhere. In fact, according to the latest statistics, 2015 will be the first year since 2007 during which almost all 28 member states will see economic growth. That's important. Citizens want to know things are moving in the right direction, even if too slowly. To my mind, it is not a coincidence that the latest opinion polls are showing that the support for the European Union is recovering. I'm referring to the PEW polls released 2 weeks ago, looking at our 6 largest member states and done by the independent Washington Research Institute. After a big fall, with the year 2013 as the worst one, support for Europe has bottomed out and is increasing again. And this was especially true in Spain and also in the UK, another country about which I'll say a word later. Ladies and gentlemen, this opinion poll already gives a first indication to the question which the new Pact for Europe also rightly asks: how to regain public support for Europe? And that answer is, of course, in the first place, through results. Something I've said from the start on of the crisis. By showing that Europe can deliver, first of all in terms of jobs and growth. That the Union enables people's opportunities and life chances, that it is an enabling Union, as you call it in the report. Here I subscribe to everything the Juncker Commission is doing in terms of public and private investment. It's extremely important. The investment gap is one of the main reasons for a low structural economic growth. If we fail on this front, we risk what is called secular stagnation. Let me add here that I also subscribe to the new Pact's proposal to single out the energy union as a new grand design around which to rally expectations for a big project. There is no other subject matter which touches people in so many ways, which links people's concerns for energy prices, for the climate, competitiveness of our industries, as well as for geopolitical security. From May 2013 until the last European Council I presided in October last year, I have put energy very high on the agenda of the leaders. And I'm glad that both my successors, Donald Tusk as well as Commission President Juncker, are determined to pursue on this path. Our energy market, just as our digital market, is fragmented. I am deliberately using another key word from the new Pact for Europe. The single market is much more than free movement of goods, services, capital and workers. It is also about sectoral policies. Let us use the Ukrainian crisis for the defragmentation and for building a single energy market. Never waste a good crisis. A second point to regain the confidence in the European Union, aside the results, is to focus more on people's need of protection of a place. This is a theme which I led out myself last year upon receiving the Charlemagne Prize, and also at the EPC annual conference early July 2014, where some of you, no doubt, were present. It is something also embodied in your concept as supportive union, in the fact that the EU should have a caring dimension. Our union brought us space, a vast territory, more than 500 million co-citizens, the biggest market in the world. It opens our minds and gives us opportunities to travel, to move, to work, to do business. We can be freer than before in history. Nobody wants to return to the customs offices on our borders, the identity controls, or for some countries, even passport controls. For our children, it is the world of yesterday. For them, our francs, marks, guilders and liras belong to museums. It is an enormous asset that people can study, work, trade and travel across our Union, from west to east, from north to south. A return to the world of the 50s is for young people just unthinkable. Ladies and gentlemen, there are even limits to Euroscepticism. But we also must acknowledge that people need not only a space, but also a place, a home. Europe must open, but also protect. And we do. We protect people against financial recklessnesses by Europe-wide surveillance of banks. We must protect people against the consequence of international tax fraud. That's why we organize the automatic exchange of financial data between national tax authorities. Fairness is key in a supporting union. We must protect Europeans against abuse of our social systems, against social dumping by action at national and European level. We must protect people against unemployment by our policies at all levels. We must protect people against poverty or the risk of poverty in the first place by creating jobs, especially for young people. A protecting union has to remain a compassionate union. And my thoughts go to the war refugees these days. All this will reassure Europeans and reconcile them with the European idea. Of course, protect does not mean commercial protectionism. We should avoid this mistake of the 30s. On the contrary, we have to make trade freer at the very basis of our prosperity. I'm very much in favor of trade agreements with the US, with Japan and others, provided the result is a win-win. Yes, it can. But it will require the hard work of convincing people, of convincing workers, that trade creates prosperity and ultimately jobs. Avoiding protectionism is not enough. We must open our markets. So far, I mentioned 2 points to regain public confidence. Europe must deliver results, first of all, jobs, and Europe must be seen not only as an enabler, but also as a protector. A third point I would highlight is that the Union must clarify where it wants to intensify relations between member states and where not. This boils down to the distinction between market Europe and currency Europe, and is also important in the context of the upcoming UK referendum. In a way, there have been 2 reactions to the financial and economic crisis. One reaction was to say we need less Europe, or even no Europe at all, according to some radical voices. The European Union was seen as a problem rather than as a solution. Of course, this negative sentiment was already there and has been expressed previously in popular votes, for instance in referendum. But it is more entrenched today than in the past. And the other reaction was to say we need more Europe, in particular because we must draw all the consequences from sharing a single currency. Perhaps a Europe of necessity, after the previous free choice to establish the euro. The necessity, for instance, to have single banking supervision and better monitoring of economic policies of each other, but also to stimulate and urge structural reforms of labour markets, product markets, tax and pension systems. The compromise has been to say that we can do with less Europe in certain fields and more Europe in others. More Europe, especially for the Eurozone. This is where the most momentous decisions of the past years have been taken. Rescue mechanism, oversight, and the banking union. At the same time, 2 detailed examinations in the United Kingdom and in the Netherlands investigated what competencies could possibly be repatriated to the member states. And the result was, in both cases, not that many. It was more a matter of proportionality, of being, as has become the common view since then, small on small things and big on big things. So what does this mean for the famous expression of the so-called ever closer union? To my mind, it is above all about an ever closer monetary union or an ever closer Eurozone. In this context, I'd also like to bring to your attention a sentence which was agreed by the June 2014 European Council, a summit held in the town hall of Ypres after a moving World War I commemoration. It was an important sentence, written by the leaders on the spot, crafted as it were in the shadow of history. I will read it out since people seem to have missed it or forgotten about it. This is what the European Council said, and I'm quoting now. The UK raised some concerns related to the future development of the European Union. These concerns will need to be addressed. In this context, the European Council noted that the concept of ever closer union allows for different paths of integration for different countries, allowing those that want to deepen integration to move ahead, while respecting the wish of those who do not want to deepen any further. End of the quotation. This is paragraph 27 of, again, the June 2014 European Council conclusions. It carries, as it were, the signature of both the British Prime Minister, the German Chancellor, and of the other leaders. It is not up to me to say much more about the British exercise. I would just highlight that almost all concerns can be addressed within the treaty and by implementing the treaty. I would also advise strongly against opening Pandora's box, against opening a complete negotiation among everybody's wish lists. Any negotiation should be restricted to UK issues. Otherwise, it will become completely unmanageable. In the current political climate, even if slightly improving, it would be very imprudent, and I'm being diplomatic here. Finally, as regards the issue of welfare tourism and social dumping, I would just say that when you look at it with some cool distance, we have already national and European legislation in place to address social dumping. That is the fear of employers exploiting free movement or to undercut local salaries. This difficult file was negotiated during the spring of 2014, in particular between France and Poland. I oversaw this closely, and both sides showed respect for each other's constraints. Welfare tourism is another aspect of the same issue of the free movement within the Union, with goodwill and a sense of proportion on both sides, and provided discrimination is avoided, the political dilemmas it poses should not be unsurmountable. So again, here we have the opportunity for some clarifications between market Europe and currency Europe. In a word, a close union and an ever closer currency union. At this point, you may ask, would the Grexit go against that idea of closer currency union and give a blow to upcoming recovery? I hope I will never have to answer that question, not only for economic reasons, but also for European reasons. The Eurozone club expanded during the storm of the Eurozone crisis, and now it would shrink after that crisis. We want to keep the club together. An exit of a country creates a dangerous precedent and uncertainty in case of problems in a country later on. Of course, every country has to comply with the rules of the club. It is as simple as that. Other countries did and are now reaping the benefits of the huge efforts they made. And so can Greece. The biggest victims of the Grexit would be the Greek people, who have already lost 25% of their living standard. They suffered from a crisis comparable with the 30s. The Eurozone is more coherent and robust than a few years ago. The financial markets are stable, notwithstanding the public discussion on Greece. But again, I hope that the issue of a Brexit remains hypothetical, and I have the habit never to answer to hypothetical questions. But whatever the outcome in the days and weeks ahead, I think one thing has become clear over the past years. There are not only economic and financial aspects to Eurozone membership. It is also very much a political bond, and it has geopolitical ramifications. One reason the 3 Baltic states joined the Eurozone in the past 5 years, and Estonia did so even in the middle of the financial storm, was that they consider it a matter of security, the security of belonging to Europe, as one of their prime ministers expressed it. Greece leaving would also have repercussions, not least in the context of the current standoff with Russia over Ukraine. Perhaps let me conclude my introduction now with the 4th and final point I want to make on regaining citizens' confidence in the European Union. It is that we need more than results. We need more than win-win. We need the shared feeling that being within the Union is a matter in the end of sharing a destiny, of sharing values, democratic values, and very clear in Ukraine, that being in Europe is our best chances of dealing with the challenges and dangers of the world around us. I do not say a shared culture, because our union is unique because of so many cultures are living together. We should never do away with that richness of diversity, but we can do with a more developed public sentiment that we are in the same boat in a global world. Intuitively, people know it. We have to make it explicit. Perhaps here small proposals can help, as the report proposes to increase the possibilities of exchange. There will be other proposals, and I hope your discussions and debate today will lead to new ideas in this direction. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me just add one consideration to conclude. Public support is indispensable for any lasting project, but so is political leadership. We will keep the club together if on both sides there is political leadership. Just saying I am their leader, so I must follow them, is not enough. Certainly not in times of deep uncertainty. Leaders must rise above and beyond taboos, prejudices, and party politics. Without political courage, we would not have overcome the existential threat to the Eurozone. We badly need it today and in the future. Thank you.
You've just listened to an episode of Social Europe Podcast. If you don't want to miss future episodes, please subscribe on iTunes or on Stitcher. Thank you very much.